somebody that believes 100%. Somebody that don't believe won't never believe unless something comes down and zaps them in the butt and takes them.
Yeah.
So, it's really hard to say anything to them. But as far as my case, if you have any questions, buy the book, read it. I've got eyewitnesses which stand up in the Bible. People's been executed. It says where two people come forward as a witness, it's believable. I got polygraph tests, 2 polygraph tests, voice stress test. I got every test known to man. Of course, the polygraph won't stand up in law, but what it comes down is read the book, feel it in your heart. Your conscience and your heart tells you what's right or wrong. And you'll know if it's a bunch of bull or not. I mean, it happened to me.
Greetings and welcome to the Vortex. I'm your host, Daniel Allen Jones, and I'm very honored to be joined here by Calvin Parker. Calvin.
Hey, Daniel.
It's good to be here with you at the Edinburg Out of this World UFO Conference in Edinburg, Texas, of course, where we talk about the subject of UFOs, alien experiences, and you've had something happen several years back that you really haven't shared much about, that you're here today to tell us all about. So take us back in Mississippi.
I am. Back in 1973 in Pascagoula, Mississippi, I had just recently taken a job there, and a friend of mine wanted to go fishing, so after we got off work, we decided to go fishing. Well, we drove over to the old Shaw Peters shipyard, which was an abandoned shipyard at the time, and he said there's an old grain elevator there that dumps grain out in the water when they unload the ships, and the fish always come up to that and eat the grain. So we figured that would be a good place to go. But little did we know it was going to be a real exciting evening.
Oh, yeah.
So we drove over, walked up to the shore, got ready and sat down and casted our lines out and started fishing. And that's when I noticed some blue hazy lights coming from behind us, and they was reflecting out across the water. And I thought it was probably the law because we was actually trespassing on shipyard property. So I said, well, that's the law, they're gonna make us leave and all. But when we stood up and turned around, it was a lot different. There was a bright light just appeared all at one time. And what that was, it was some kind of craft set down and the door opened on it, and the lights was coming from the inside.
Wow.
So we stood up and turned around and looked at it, and the lights was so bright they was almost blinding. But we could actually see 3 bulky looking figures coming out of the ship that was coming toward us. And the first thing that went through my mind, well, we need to run, we need to get away from here. But there was nowhere to run. It was water in the front, water in the back, water on each side. Or not water in the back, but they was in the back. So as they got closer, we turned around, and no time it took them to get to where we were. And that's when we noticed it was something from out of this world, I might as well say.
Yeah. 3
robotic-looking creatures with crab-looking hands, and 2 of them got a hold of Charlie, and 1 got a hold of myself. And immediately when they got a hold of me, I felt an injection, like some kind of shot or something.
Wow.
And it just kind of settled me down, because I was nervous up until then. So after it kind of settled us down a little bit, they levitated us up, not picked us up, but we just levitated when they grabbed us by the arm, and floated us aboard a craft, or floated me aboard one. I lost sight of Charlie then, because I couldn't turn around and look either way. So when we got aboard the craft, I remember looking to see where all them bright lights was coming from. And they was coming out of the walls. It was like they had painted the walls with light fixtures or something. And these lights was just illuminating out of the paint. So they took me into a separate room where there was an examination table, and it was laid on about a 16-degree angle. So they put me on this table at about a 16-degree angle. And that's when a different looking female-looking creature. I call her a creature because I don't know really what she was.
Sure.
But she came out, and she grabbed me by the cheeks and pinched my cheeks. And I noticed there was no feelings in her hands or anything. But then, looking at her hands, well, first of all, there's this thing that come out of the ceiling that come down and rotated around her head. It clicked 4 times. It's about the size of a deck of cards. And then it shot back up into the ceiling. Now, what that was and what it was about, I don't know. But then this female creature came out. She grabbed me by my cheek and kind of pinched my cheek a little bit. And she didn't have no feeling of warmth or nothing in her hands. It was just no kind of feelings at all. And then she started to take her fingers, her 2 middle fingers, and run down my throat because they was a little longer than the rest of them. And she got back in the back of my throat and started trying to come up my nasal cavities, and that's when I started choking.
Wow.
And I was choking, I was strangling, and then out of nowhere, it was just a voice that come in my head. Now, I didn't see her mouth move or anything, so she must have telepathically been telling me, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to harm you. But hell, I was already hurting me because it was painful. I was strangling. So she did take her hand out of my mouth at this time. And I was panicked, and I couldn't breathe. And it was kind of rough where she had put her fingers in there like a rupture, you know. So she took her hand out. And then the big, ugly creature that brought me aboard the ship come over and grabbed me by the arm again. And I felt another injection, and that kind of calmed me down. And that's the only thing that calmed me down. And she come back and just kind of messed around a little bit, you know, with my face and my mouth a touch. And then she made a gargling noise, and this thing came back and got me and escorted me back out the ship and took me out to the river. And I stood there with my arms facing in front of me, paralyzed. I couldn't move. So they left going back to the ship, and that's when I heard Charlie say, son, you okay? And I turned around and looked. When he said that, I was able to move around. And he stood up, and we seen him go above inside the ship, and then they closed the door, and the bright light went out. And there was nothing but them little blue hazy lights in. And this thing took up off the ground. It just shot up into the air and disappeared. So that was pretty much the encounter. We sat down and talked about it, decided not to tell nobody after the fact. So, you know, maybe, but word got out somehow.
Wow, so this is a really extraordinary experience. Some people have shared a little bit about it and shown different diagrams of some of the things that you guys might have encountered out there. The large figures that took you guys up, and then the female. Now, this is an interesting dynamic in the whole experience. What was your impression whenever you had this interaction between these creatures, these beings, whatever they might have been? Did you get the impression that they were all organic, alive, living creatures, or maybe something that happened says otherwise?
Well, the old big ugly one that brought me aboard, I'm pretty sure he was a robot. He moved mechanically. He acted like he had a special job to do, and he did it. But the other one, there's no doubt in my mind it was something alive and had feelings, because she, you know, she showed a little compassion when she told me she wasn't going to hurt me, and took her fingers out of my throat and didn't try to force them no more. So I'm almost sure she was alive and she had some kind of compassion about her.
Regarding their visual appearance, what would you describe as far as how they appeared? Were they at all similar to the way people look, with 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, or what do you think?
No, the robotic-looking creature wasn't. Now, Charlie described, the guy that was with me described 3 little pointy things sticking out. I didn't see that. I didn't see no kind of features at all on the big one that brought me in. She had a regular mouth, nose, ears, face, and everything. I didn't notice any hair, but I wasn't looking for no hair either. It could have been combed back or maybe covered up. And I'm sure she had some kind of clothes on. So, because her hands was coming out of the, looked like coming out of the sleeve of her, whatever she had on.
Right, and you also share about how later on you had a white shirt, that you would always wear the white shirts whenever you were going out.
Right.
And this ended up being covered in some blood. So tell us what that was like.
Oh, that was terrible. My nose started bleeding bad. Well, this is something I never brought up. After this, I had regular nosebleeds, real regular. But on the ship that night, it started bleeding real bad, and blood got all over me, and apparently, it come from my mouth, my nose, and everywhere else. So it was a good deal of pain involved in it.
So this was something that, you guys were out there, and do you feel that maybe this just was passing by and happened to come across? Do you feel that it specifically went down to get both of you guys?
I don't know. That's something I really don't know. We could have just been at the wrong place at the wrong time or right time. Or it might have been something that had been tracking us for years. Who knows? I mean, such an advanced civilization they'd have to be able to land and get out of here like that. They could have been keeping up with us, or they might not have been. We just might have been there.
So, since this has happened back in the 70s, had you ever had any similar experiences since then at all?
1993, I had learned through hypnosis. Bud Hopkins had hypnotized me. And I had went on a fishing trip, and I had a lot of missing time. And later on, when I got the tape back where I had been hypnotized years later, that I had been revisited, and we had actually gotten in a physical confrontation during while she was revisiting, and there was blood passed back and forth between both parties because I had slammed her head up against the wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was black, and I had it on my shirt. Again, I had a lot of blood on my shirt. But that was the only time that I can recall. And this came out through hypnosis.
So you didn't actually know this until you went and had that hypnosis session?
Right. I was working on the book in August of last year. And while working on the book, I had mentioned to the publisher of the book, Philip Mantle, that I had met Bud Hopkins, and he tried to hypnotize me, and he wasn't able. Well, I really didn't think he did. So Philip called Dr. Jacobs and got a copy of the tape, because he had all Bud Hopkins' old stuff. And Dr. Jacobs called and asked if he had permission to give it to Philip. I said, sure, give him anything he needs. So during that time, Philip took the original tape, cassette tape, transcribed it out, every word for word. It took him a little while. And then he sent it to me. And I was really shocked to find out that I was hypnotized, because I didn't realize it.
Wow.
But he had put a post-hypnotic suggestion in my head that I wouldn't remember none of it till it was time to remember it. So that's how the tape come about. I wouldn't have known it till today if he hadn't got a copy of it.
Yeah.
But I never listened to it because I didn't want to know what happened. I wanted to figure it out on my own, or for it to come to me on my own.
Sure.
So, I never listened to it. Till this day, I've never listened to it. And what really jogged it was I was doing a podcast on an interview, and Linda Moulton Howell asked me some questions, and that got my memory jogged and got me started thinking. And I still didn't listen to it, but I do remember what's happened.
Yeah.
And since then, even the parts that I remember, I just tell my wife about it. She'll read and see if that's in the book.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have to read it, be reminded.
Sure, yeah. I know it's probably very just a traumatic experience to have to relive or just think about in general. But moving forward, did you ever have anyone come and interrogate or question you about your situation, maybe from the military or government?
Well, not actually from the military, but you've had people come and sit down. I had they said there was a reporter come in, but you could tell this wasn't no reporter when he got there. He was too sharp and had precise questions that he wanted to ask.
Yeah.
But he said it was a reporter, and he came in, and I really do feel like he was from the military, wanted to question, because you'd mention to him something just in brief, and he'd want to get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And either he was a good reporter or a good spy, one or the other.
Maybe both. Well, that's very interesting, because it seems like people who have these extraordinary encounters end up later on having these people come and try to follow up to get information out of them. And so,
yeah.
Other than this, maybe the reporter, you don't know of anyone else that's come and tried
Not that I know of. I felt like people was watching me before, but I think that was just paranoia.
Yeah, well, it's good to be able to kind of sit back and question your own sanity from time to time, because something like this can drive people crazy, and it's a challenging thing to have to live with.
Yes, it is.
So, throughout all this time now, and after holding this in for so long, has this changed your view or your understanding of what's possible in the world and beyond?
It's changed my understanding, because everybody's a lot more open and willing to talk about it. And you have shows on the History Channel, such as Ancient Alien, that talks about it, and they try to reason with it and put everything in perspective. But yeah, where I wouldn't have a doubt about it, somebody else would, because they had an experience. And everything's changed where it's a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I think so. We're here again at a conference that's all about this subject, really delving into the research, the experiences that people have had. And so while a lot of people out there might never actually report something they experience, some do. There are some places you can go. What would you say to those people who have had an experience and they're wanting to be able to share, but they feel like they can't because they'll be ridiculed and things like that?
Well, this is a different time now than what it was in '73. I would say if you got an experience, document it any way you can. Write it down. If you got a phone with a camera on it, take pictures. But be sure you document anything you can remember. It don't matter how little you think it is. Write it down, because you'll need all this documentation later to deal with it. And there's people now trained to take care of you in a situation like this. Where back in, nobody was trained to do it. You was just pretty much on your own. So reach out to people. There's hotlines you can call. And call them, and they'll get you some help over.
Well, I think that's a good way for people to know that there are supportive groups. There are people who can work with you when it comes to these experiences, and so you're not alone. And in closing, there are people out there who think that UFOs are just made up stories or just hoaxes, or just the whole abduction phenomenon is not real and people are just trying to get fame and money. For those in that mindset, what would you say to them?
Well, it's really somebody that believes 100%. Somebody that don't believe won't never believe unless something comes down and zaps them in the butt and takes them.
Yeah.
So, it's really hard to say anything to them. But as far as my case, if you have any questions, buy the book, read it. I've got eyewitnesses which stand up in the Bible. People's been executed. It says where two people come forward as a witness, it's believable. I got polygraph tests, 2 polygraph tests, voice stress test. I got every test known to man. Of course, the polygraph won't stand up in law, but what it comes down is read the book, feel it in your heart. Your conscience and your heart tells you what's right or wrong. And you'll know if it's a bunch of bull or not. I mean, it happened to me. I believe it. I don't have to read it. I don't even remember what I wrote in it too much.
Well, it's very interesting. So where can people go to find out more about how to get your book and what's going on with your world?
go to Amazon, Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story, Calvin Parker. They got the book in there for sale. Buy the book, read it. If nothing else, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's good good reading, because I didn't write the book like a book. I didn't want it like that. I wanted people to enjoy reading it and be able to clear up any question they might have. And you know, it's like, somebody's told me it's like sitting in a room with you and talking to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, give it a chance. And it might clear up some things in their head that they want to. And then if they still got questions, call somebody with experience and talk to them.
Great. Well, it seems like you're well off to helping connect these people together, and sharing your experience takes a lot of courage. So we really find that commendable. Calvin, I want to thank you for your time here today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Appreciate your ability to come and share something which a lot of people wouldn't.
This has been a great conference. The people's been great in it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the people involved in it. And the general public that's came in, they've been real accepting.
It's really great to see the community getting involved, and that's what we need to really help promote, is that this is a subject that needs more scrutiny, but in a positive way. We need researchers, we need people to investigate. And the way I see it is that while we can make new discoveries every day, we won't know unless we go.
Right. You're exactly right. And it's foolish to think that we're the only ones here. Look at the stars and the planets, and many stars out there, and every one of them's got a planet around it.
So hopefully we'll find out a bit more, and we'll have some more official statements made by the government, military, and more people such as yourself coming out to share about their accounts.
Yes, sir. I believe we will. I think it's coming soon.
All right. Well, thank you for your time once again, and we will see you guys in the Vortex. If you liked this video, be sure to check out our other content and get connected on our page and social media sites. Every day, new discoveries are being made all across the world and beyond, so let's work together to find out what's next. And remember, we won't know if we don't go. I'll see you in the Vortex.